You laughed at my garage. Now I own your company. No, you can't.
The richest men in the room laughed at him, passed his papers around like it was a joke, called him a charity case with a clipboard. He didn't say a word. He just picked up his papers and walked out. That was the biggest mistake they ever made. My name is Marcus, and I want to be honest with you right from the start. This is not a feel-good story. This is about what happens when people mistake your silence for weakness. A few years ago, I was nobody to them. Fresh out of school, no family money, no connections, no name. I grew up in a mid-sized city in Ohio. Nothing glamorous. Just a regular neighborhood where most people worked long hours and still came home tired. My parents didn't give me a head start. They gave me something different. They gave me a standard. Work hard. Stay honest. Don't quit. That was it. That was the whole playbook. And when I finished school, I had every intention of following it. I had a business plan. I had an idea. I had hunger. What I didn't have was a suit that fit right, or a last name anyone recognized. And in that room, that conference room in downtown Columbus, full of men who owned half the commercial real estate in the county, that was all that mattered to them. I remember the table was long, dark wood, those leather chairs that swivel. I stood at the front of the room with a folder in my hand. It had taken me 4 months to put that plan together. Market research, projections, supplier contacts, everything. The moment I started talking, I could feel it. The side glances, the small smirks. One guy, the heaviest man at the table, silver watch, didn't even look up from his phone. I kept going. Then one of them interrupted me. A business out of a garage? A few people chuckled. Son, what's your name again? Marcus. Marcus, listen. I don't know who told you this was a good idea, but business isn't for people in your situation. You need capital. You need relationships. You need experience. He leaned back in his chair. What you need is a job. A real one. The room laughed. Not loud, not mean, just easy. The kind of laugh people do when something isn't even worth getting serious about. They handed my folder back to me. A couple of the papers had been flipped through and dropped on the table like scrap mail. I collected every page. Slowly. Quietly. I didn't argue. I didn't explain myself. I just left. That night, I drove home in a 2009 Civic with 140,000 miles on it and a check engine light that had been on for 2 years. I sat in the parking lot of my apartment building for a while. Not crying, not angry, just still. Then I went inside and got back to work. During the day, I drove for a delivery service. Packages, food, whatever paid. At night, I worked on the business. Some nights I ate, some nights I didn't bother. Some months the electricity stayed on. Some months I called the utility company and asked for an extension. There were stretches where I was sick from exhaustion and kept going anyway. Stretches where nothing moved, nothing grew, nothing worked. And I sat there staring at a spreadsheet at 1 a.m, wondering if they were right. But I never quit. Not once. I rented a small unit in an industrial park on the east side of the city. Not a garage, but barely better. 1,200 square feet in a bathroom that smelled like rust. I hired my first employee, a woman named Dana, who was sharp, reliable, and willing to take a lower salary in exchange for equity. Best decision I ever made. I set rules from day one, rules I didn't learn in a classroom. Honesty first, always. If something goes wrong, you say so. You earn your place here. No politics, no favoritism. If you're coasting, this isn't the place for you. If you're growing, there's room for you to move up. People started trusting us. Not because we had a fancy brand or a big marketing budget, because we did what we said we would do. Word spread, slowly, then faster. That unit became a small office. That small office became a floor of a building. That floor became the building. 5 years in, I was sitting in what had become a real company. 23 employees, a client list that covered 6 states. Revenue that I still sometimes had to blink at before I believed the number. I was having coffee at my desk, going through contracts, when my assistant knocked and said the news was on in the conference room. I walked in. Breaking news banner across the bottom of the screen. One of the largest commercial services firms in the region, headquartered right there in Columbus, was in financial collapse. Years of mismanagement, over-leveraged, bleeding contracts, leadership scandal. The name on the screen was the same firm where that meeting happened. The same room, the same table, the same people. They were going to auction. Before I tell you what happened next, if you know someone who has been counted out, talked down to, or laughed at for daring to try something, share this story with them right now. Not later, right now. And if you want more stories like this, real ones with no fluff, hit subscribe. New stories drop every week. Now, back to the auction. The room was full of investors, suits, lawyers, people who do this for a living. The kind of room I used to look at from the outside. I walked in with my attorney, James, who had been with me for the last 3 years. In his briefcase was a contract, a very large contract. We took our seats. The proceedings started. Numbers were thrown around. Firms made their cases. Then James slid our offer across the table. The room shifted. People leaned in, looked at the number, looked at each other, then looked at me. It took them a moment. I could see it happening in real time. The recognition. One of the men from that original meeting was there. Older now, quieter. He stared at me across the table, and I watched his face as it landed. He knew who I was. I didn't smile. I didn't perform. I just looked at him and said, calmly, "That day, you passed my papers around and laughed at a garage business. Today, I'm the one buying." The room was silent. Not awkward silent. Just still. I'm not going to tell you revenge is the goal. It's not worth chasing on its own. What I'll tell you is this. The people who counted me out did me a favor. Every laugh was fuel. Every dismissal was direction. They told me where I wasn't wanted. So I built something that didn't need their approval. My father used to say, hardworking people create solutions. Lazy people create more problems. I've thought about that line more times than I can count. If I had listened to that room, if I had folded my papers, driven home, and applied for a warehouse job the next morning, they would have won. Not because they were right about me, but because I would have chosen to believe them. I didn't, and that's the only difference. If Marcus's story hit different, give this a like. It helps more people find it. Share it with someone who's been underestimated. They need to hear this. Subscribe, because next week's story might be the one that changes how someone sees themselves. And drop a comment. Do you believe more in luck or hard work? I read every single one.